And Cam, I want to thank you all for checking out this week's episode of Life in the Movies with Ryan and Jacob. I just want to give you all a heads up that this week's episode was recorded about a week and a half ago, and because of that, it seems a bit outdated. I say this is episode 5, in reality this is actually episode 6. When we had recorded this was before my computer just kind of crapped on me, so I couldn't get the episode edited in time. The February preview was done kind of last minute with my old setup. So basically, even though I say in this week's episode, that it's episode 5, in reality it is episode 6. I hope everybody understands that, and I hope you all enjoy this week's episode of the podcast. Jacob and I, of course, had a lot of fun recording it and talking about Batman and just movies and life in general. So I hope that you all enjoyed it. It's episode 5 of Life and the Movies with Ryan and Jacob. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week we're going to be talking about The Batman and the fact that it is 3 hours long. Is this a new trend or is this a bit of a one-off? Jacob and I are going to have a lot of fun discussing it. And speaking of Jacob, let me introduce to you my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how you doing, man?
Always a pleasure being on your podcast, man. It's definitely been a great time being a part of this podcast every week. It's one of my favorite times of the week to actually be a part of this podcast, talking about movies, talking about life. It's been a great ride so far. And I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Well, I appreciate that, man. It's something I look forward to doing as well, or doing and continue to do in the future. Because, when I started out on YouTube, I felt like I was on an island. So whenever I would find a like person who would like to talk about movies as much as I do, it'd be like, a person, come, we must be friends. So it's just great because now I have more subscribers than ever. I have like a sizable community of people that I know, like you or my friend Rachel, who I co-host Hidden Gems podcast with, Brevin from Brevin's Flicks and Games that I've had on my channel numerous times, just the Suit Up Geeks, just a lot of people that I would not have known, like literally, like if you were to tell me like in 2015 when I started this channel that I would be this far along, I probably wouldn't have believed you, but it's onward and upward from here.
Yep. And I hope to see your channel grow in the coming year.
Yeah, because I'm literally almost at 200. I'm at 197 as of this recording, so fingers crossed by the time this episode airs, I will be across 200. But it's going to be amazing when that happens. It's not an if, it's a when. I'm manifesting that into the universe.
Yeah, to paraphrase the Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War, give this man 200 subscribers.
There you go. So, Jacob, how's life been for you? Anything good, bad, somewhere in the middle?
Life's been pretty good, Yeah, got my job. Everything family-wise has been pretty good. I've had a pretty good week, pretty good past couple weeks. 2022 has been pretty good so far. My reading channel's still going pretty good. I'm currently in the middle of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. As I said in previous episodes, I haven't read the Harry Potter books since I was a kid, like elementary school age was when I first got into the Harry Potter books. I'd say probably my 4th or 5th grade. Can't really, so far back in time, I'm forgetting what year. It'd probably be about 2005, I guess, because it was around the time Goblet of Fire, the movie, came out, was when I was getting into the books. And going into context, I was reading the last book, Deathly Hallows, when it came out in like 2007, around the time Order of the Phoenix, the movie, was coming out. I was literally reading that book when that movie was coming out. So I was in that like first generation of Harry Potter fans getting into the source material, digging the movies up. And obviously, I've seen the movies over the years multiple times. And this is the first time I've read the books since a really young age. So I've had a greater appreciation for the books now that I'm rereading them all these years later.
Yeah, I remember. I remember when Deathly Hallows the book came out. It was a big deal in my local library. There was a big old party. Everyone dressed up. There was a sorting hat. There was like butter beer in air quotes because it couldn't be alcoholic. So I think it was like a punch with like a sherbet kind of deal. But it was so much fun. It's like memories that just won't leave. I dressed up as Harry Potter with the glasses and the scar and the hair and the whole nine. It was so much fun. And I was the first person to check out the first copy of Deathly Hallows. There was a bit of a raffle lottery, I'm not sure what to call it, but they did a drawing of library card holders, and I was one of them. They did like a whole thing where it was like names in a bowl, and my name came up, and I breezed right through that book. Like as soon as I grabbed it, I'm like, there's no time to waste. And I got the audiobooks along with it. And I sat down right there, like right there with the cassette tapes. And I hit it in there. And I was just like, I was locked in for like 3 hours. Cause this was like rather late at night, but I was locked in for 3 hours while I was reading Deathly Hallows. And I got up to the part, I think that night where I think it was Harry, Ron, and Hermione infiltrating the Ministry to try and get I can't remember, it's not the Occlumency.
It was the locket.
The locket, yes, that's the one. And so that's just memories that'll stick with me forever.
Yeah. Man, yeah, those are all good books. And the movies, all the movies adapted the books so well. Like, I can't say there's aspects, like the books did a great job with a lot of things. The movies did a good job with a lot of things. The books did a great job of expanding the world even deeper. And I think they both complement each other very well at the end of it. I couldn't be happier as a fan that the books and the movies are about on par with each other.
Yeah, and what makes it more impressive is that the movies were directed by different directors. Number 1 and 2 were by Chris Columbus. Prisoner of Azkaban was Alfonso Cuarón. 4 was Mike Newell. And then 5 and the rest onward were David Heyman. Now, when
David
you got...
Yates.
Oh, thank you, David Yates.
David Heyman produced them all.
The producer, thank you. But when you have multiple directors, there is a risk of competing visions and it kind of muddling the quality. Now, Mission Impossible shows that different directors can do different styles to success, but success is not guaranteed. But the Harry Potter movies consistently were just really solid. Like, I think the lesser, like, Harry Potter movies, I'm not talking about Fantastic Beasts, but like the lesser mainline Harry Potter movies are still just really good. And then the best tier are just like mind-blowingly excellent.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So in terms of my life, it's going okay. Like I said, working and other things. But something fun happened. I put myself in to run a 5K at at the Daytona International Speedway. We're not running on the track. We're running in the infield, and it's a thing that I'm doing to push myself out of my comfort zone, because I remember when I was a lot younger, I hated running. With a burning, fiery passion, I hated running. But for some reason, because all throughout late 2020 and all throughout 2021, I promised myself that I was going to lose all the weight that I gained during the height of lockdown, because I was stress eating all the time and I was just not in a good place mentally. And running was one of the things that I started doing. And I didn't think I would get the bug, but I got the running bug. And so I put myself in a 5K on Christmas Eve, and I did pretty well there. And so when I heard of this other one, I said to myself, you know what? I'm up to that challenge. And I don't expect to like win or be on the podium, but just to know that I put myself in there, a 5K, and I finish it, that's going to be my prize. Just knowing that it's kind of like Rocky. He didn't go in to win, he just went in to go the distance. As long as I go the distance, then I'm going to be happy.
All right, yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to come of that. I've never been into running at all, so I don't think I would join any 5Ks. Now, if there was like a walking version of that, I could probably do that. I've never got into running.
Yeah, there's definitely a ton of 5Ks that also have a fun walk like side of things, especially a lot of charity runs. Like I remember I was in one many years ago for breast cancer, and it was a 5K and also a fun run where you could run and also walk if you really wanted to. It really didn't matter who won. It was all about raising the money for breast cancer research, which hey, I'm all for that, and so I was more than happy to participate.
Yeah, I've been in one of those walk versions of a 5K. It was years ago. We had an event every Thanksgiving called the Drumstick Dash. I forget what it was raising money for. I know it was something charitable. It's been probably about 15 years since I've last been to one. And we would go out early morning, do this walk, and then go back home and eat turkey. It was a pretty good Thanksgiving tradition for a good couple of years. I don't know why we stopped doing it, but it was a fun little event that was part of my childhood for a couple of years.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And by the time this episode drops, the run will be in the rearview mirror because we're recording this on Monday, January 24th, and the run is the 29th, which is that Saturday. So on the next episode, I will tell you all how I did, and I look forward to giving you all my results. So that day is
Yeah,
going to be
good luck on the run.
Thank you. That day is going to be a busy day because not only do I have the run that day, but it's also the Rolex 24 at Daytona, which is a legendary, like not a NASCAR race, but just a race in general. I go every year, so it's a lot of fun. And if you run in there, you get free entry into there, which I'm going into the 5K not just to get into the race. That's just a perk. I'm going in just for personal benefit, but life has its little bonuses. What can I say? And then after that, I'm going to hang out with some very good friends of mine who we haven't seen since he got married. So busy Saturday coming up for me, which is really cool. The stars aligning because there's no real movies coming out this week, which I think is bizarre, but there it is.
Yeah, I hope the day works well for you, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. But I think that's a good place as any to jump into the movie discussion. So Jacob, let's kick things off with the what we've been watching lately segment. So Jacob, what have you been watching lately? Actually, first of all, I've really been enjoying your Blu-ray collection videos as you've gone through the alphabet. So those have been just a lot of fun watching.
I appreciate that. I try to post one of those videos up every week since I started in 2022. I used to do like a complete full collection video, just the one and done video, but that one that would take forever to make. Two, every time I film it, my battery dies in between and it takes hours to make it. And three, ever since I got my 4K camera in 2021, my memory space isn't as big as my old camera. So that was an editing hassle right there. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it in chunks this year. I'm going to do it by alphabet since I just alphabetized my physical media collection for the first time. Let's just make a fun little ABC thing out of it and just keep building up the collection as it goes along.
Yeah, I get a kick out of watching Blu-ray collection videos. I can't explain how or why, but I don't know. It's just reaction for someone to me to watch someone be like, 300. I love this movie. It's fantastic. Let's see. This rare 4K, like the Apocalypse Now 4K that I actually have on the shelf back there. I can't explain it. I just find it really oddly relaxing. If I need to relax, I'll just go onto YouTube and be like, complete Blu-ray collection or complete physical media collection. And I love when people do like their Blu-rays or 4Ks, Blu-rays, and then DVDs, but also they do like their books or their CDs. Like I've actually found ones that go that deep. So I don't know. I can't explain it, but I just love watching those.
Yeah, they're fun videos to make when you split it in chunks, and they're easier to edit. That's for sure.
Yeah, and noticing on your channel, I see the weird adventures of you going through Alfred Hitchcock's early filmography have been quite interesting.
Yeah, I watched another one just recently. The video, I think by the time this podcast drops, the video will already be out. I've got it set for premiere in a couple days or so as we're recording this. But Blackmail was the movie I watched this time. This was Alfred Hitchcock's first talkie, his first sound film. And it was kind of interesting at first. Like the first 30 to 40 minutes of this movie were fantastic. They were actually some of the best tension I'd seen in an early Alfred Hitchcock film. Because we have this woman who's going on this random date with somebody because her boyfriend's like this police chief or whatever who's too busy with his job. So she goes out with this other guy, and everything goes all well at first. Then he starts getting a little obsessive towards her, and then he tries to rape her. And in self-defense, she kills the guy. And this came out in 1929, right? So
Wait,
you couldn't do.
back up. Did you say this? There's like assault involved in this?
Yeah, this came out in 1929, so you couldn't do too much of that in a movie like that. So Hitchcock did it to where the assault happens behind a curtain, and so you have the conflict going on, and you're just sitting there for a good minute or so like, oh, what's going on? What's going to happen next? And then you see the girl walk out with the knife afterwards, indicating that she killed the guy in self-defense. And I was like, wow, that was well done. You can see why he was the master of suspense. Sadly, though, the rest of the movie just kind of got boring after that. Like there was like some blackmail scheme going on related to that, and I just kept struggling to stay awake after that. The rest of the movie was so boring. The first 30 minutes was fantastic, and if the rest of the movie was like the first 30 minutes, I'd consider it a hidden gem Hitchcock movie. But yeah, that was a interesting little watch just for the first 30 to 40 minutes of the movie.
Where could you possibly go after after something like assault and then a woman walking out with the knife? It's literally all downhill from there.
Yeah, that was an interesting movie, and even behind the scenes, it was an interesting movie because this was the first sound film Hitchcock ever made. But as he was making the movie, while he was making the movie, he originally made it as a silent film. And the producers wanted him to convert to sound because that was becoming the norm. And so a compromise ended up being made to where there's two versions of Blackmail. There's the silent version, and then there's the talkie version. But the talkie version's the more widely accessible version of the movie you can find, and that's the version I've watched. But it was definitely interesting, especially, like I said, at the very beginning. It'll be interesting. Oh, go ahead.
The late 20s, you just had to be there.
Yeah. Every time I think of that era, I always think of, Singing in the Rain when they're making that fake Hollywood movie, The Dueling Cavalier, and everything's messed up. Like they're struggling to find where the microphone is, and the sound's out of synchronization. Pierre is miles away, you witch. No. Yes.
Oh, how I love so deeply that scene where the microphone is in the flower and she keeps moving her head side to side.
Yeah. Your head is too valuable.
Yeah, shout out to Singing in the Rain. That movie's awesome.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I watched a ton of movies this past week. Have you seen the sports movie McFarlane USA?
I think I saw it in theaters, but it has been a good long time. I know Kevin Costner's in it, and I know it's about running. That's all I remember.
what's funny was I did this for my Celebrating Disney series, and it was requested by a subscriber. I never watched it in theaters. I remember seeing it advertised, and I remember Kevin Costner was in it, but it just looked like one of them run-of-the-mill generic sports movies, so I just kind of forgot about it until it got requested to me, and I'm like, okay, I'll check this out. I watched it on Disney Plus, and the film honestly really surprised me. Like, I actually was invested in the narrative. I really liked Kevin Costner's performance. See, going in, I didn't even know what the sport was. Like, I came in thinking it'd be like another football movie or something. And even in the beginning, you see football in the film. Like, okay, we're doing football again. That's like the most overused sport in a movie. And then cross country was set up, and I'm like, oh wow, I've not seen too many cross country movies. This ought to be really interesting. And yeah, I actually did enjoy the movie because of that. I liked the dynamic with Kevin Costner and the team. I liked the ethnicity aspect of the movie where it's two cultures coming together. I thought that was beautifully done. I thought the racing sequences were fantastic, and there was enough emotion put into the story. I thought it was a really solid Disney sports movie. I don't know if I'd put it as high up as something like Remember the Titans, which was fantastic, but I put it in the same boat as like Miracle. They were both really good movies, and McFarlane USA had some really good moments in it that I highly appreciated.
Yeah, Disney for like a good few years, they were doing like excellent sports movies like Cool Running, starring the late John Candy, rest in peace. The Rookie, which I think is underrated. I love The Rookie to death. Miracle, like you mentioned, directed by Gavin O'Connor, that one's great. The Greatest Game Ever Played, which is very special to me. I grew up playing golf, and I still do, and it's still the greatest golf movie ever made. Glory Road, Invincible. Like, Disney was just killing it in the sports movie game for like a good long time, weren't they?
Yeah, they had some good movies over the years. I also love The Mighty Ducks, which is, I never
Yeah.
watched it as a kid, but I watched it for the first time last year and thought it was great. It was one of my favorite sports movies. That
Flying
V, man,
V. Flying
the,
V.
the Flying V was awesome. I just love seeing, the team band together, and some of the antics they would do in between the games was always fun to watch in all three of the movies, but the first one was definitely the best of
Yeah,
the three for sure.
I love how Gordon Bombay quits his big lawyer job where he goes to his boss, Mr. Ducksworth, and he's like, quack, 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 Mr. Ducksworth, quack, quack, quack. You may have paid for this jersey, but you didn't earn it. And he turns to his former coach and he's like, we'll see you in the playoffs. And he does indeed see him in the playoffs. And kind of spinning off into that, one of my favorite and kind of least favorite moments, because it turns me into an emotional wreck, is when not Charlie Baker, but the player from the Sharks that, or not the Sharks, but the Hawks, that due to a district thing goes over to the Ducks. Adam Banks, that's his name. He gets
Yeah.
cross-checked by his former teammate, and the other Hawk is like, what? Like, what was that? And the player's like, my job. Like, I hate that kid. And immediately afterwards, where Banks is like carted off on a stretcher, and one of the players is like, you did all right, cake eater. I'm like, unity, I love it.
Yeah, I watched that for the first time, and we got to that part, and I'm like, man, why was that kid all mustache twirly evil just for 2 seconds? I'm like, what was this?
This is youth hockey. This isn't the Stanley Cup. Like, turn it down a tad.
But yeah, Disney definitely had some great sports movies. I kind of wish they went back to that genre because we haven't had any for several years. I think the last real big one was, I think it was Queen of Catway, which was that chess movie, which I don't think it was the best sports movie or anything because aside from the Queen's Gambit, I find chess like the most boring sport you could ever find.
Yeah.
But that movie was okay. I think the performances were fine in that, but aside from like the culture and the performances, like the movie was kind of a snooze to me.
I'm making myself a note because I think this weekend I'm going to do a top 10 sports stories I'd like Disney to do.
Oh yeah, definitely do. I would definitely see that. I know you're more on the sports, more of the sports guy than I am. Like, I don't know much of these sports stories at all and the people behind them. But so to me, watching these movies are like new stories to me. So I will definitely give that video a shot and see what would be some cool stories to come in the future.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a casual sports fan, but I definitely know enough to at least find 10 ideas for Disney to do that are somewhat family friendly, because I don't think they ever do like a version of Borg and McEnroe, because imagine Disney finding a way to like find a way around McEnroe's rants and be like, "Are you kidding me?" Like just yelling at the chairperson. Man. Anyway, what else have you been watching?
All right, so I checked out the new Hotel Transylvania movie, which was on Amazon Prime, and that one strangely is having a divisive reaction among people. I've seen some people that enjoy it fine, and other people say it's one of the worst animated movies they've ever seen. I'm like, really? You put it on the same levels as like the Emoji Movie? I don't get that. I don't get the hate for any of the Hotel Transylvania movies, and I actually thought the new one was one of the better Hotel Transylvania movies, but that might be a hot take on my end. I thought the story was fun. I liked the body character design swap element in the stories where Johnny ends up becoming a monster due to a spell gone wrong, and the monsters end up becoming human in this. And I thought that was a funny little take on the genre, like body swap, character swap type thing. The humor I thought was great throughout. There were so many great slapstick jokes throughout the movie, and I was laughing my butt off throughout the entire runtime. And I thought the voice work was pretty good. I know we brought up in the January preview, it was Brian Hull who replaced Adam Sandler as Dracula, an up and coming voice actor, and I'm subscribed to his YouTube channel, and I've been a fan of his content over there for several years now. And he does an amazing job at taking on Adam Sandler's Dracula. Like, his impression is spot on. I can't wait to see him do more voice work in the future. Overall, I thought this was a really good movie. It's maybe not high caliber animation art like Disney Pixar, but it doesn't need to do that. It just needs to be entertaining and be funny. And I think the movie did its job very well. I highly enjoyed this movie. Not counting the Harry Potter reunion special, I think of the two movies I've seen in 2022 new releases, I actually think this is the better of the two.
Yeah, the Emoji Movie brought animation to a new level. That level was called the basement. So whenever people compare animated movies to the Emoji Movie, I automatically have to raise my eyebrow, because the Emoji Movie was just so sky smashingly awful that you just have to do a double take and just like take it with a grain of salt. But I've always been a defender of the Hotel Transylvania movies. Maybe it's because of my love of the Universal monsters, or the classic monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula and things like that. But I've watched every single one, and I haven't seen 4 yet, but I do plan on it. I have not seen the 4th one yet, but I've seen the other 3, and every time I've seen them, I've loved them. And critics have just been like, "Oh, they're not that good." And I'm like, what are you expecting? you, like, I think critics secretly want all movies to be like the tragedy of Macbeth on Apple Plus. I saw this meme going around, and I'll DM it to you later, Jacob, if you haven't seen it. But it's this one of Vince McMahon where it's like the one where he's like, and then he gets more turned on, and then more, and then his eyes turn into lasers, and he falls back. You know the one I'm talking about?
I might have seen it on Twitter a time or two. I don't know if I truly get the reference or not.
Anyway, anyway, the meme is like, it starts out at like basic level of not a Marvel movie, and then over 2 hours, shot in black and white about World War II through the perspective of a pigeon.
I think I
cinema.
might have seen that. That is kind of funny.
I swear, people are like that sometimes. Like, people just want it to be all A24, and I'm not trying to dog A24. I think A24 is fantastic, but it's all about variety. You can like many different genres, many different things.
Yeah, that's why I rolled my eyes when the Martin Scorsese started that debate where like the comic book movies or the theme park movies, and I was like, you can enjoy a different variety of movies. Like, I love the A24 stuff. I like Martin Scorsese movies, but I also like Marvel movies. I like dumb, fun, popcorn blockbuster movies. I mean, even movies that are technically awful, like Cats and Batman and Robin, I can find some enjoyability in some of those movies.
Yeah, I'm not
for
looking
the wrong
forward.
reasons.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to rewatching Batman and Robin for my review series coming up. That's going to be painful, but yeah, and they've tried to like they're asking directors now, hey, MCU, what's your thoughts on it? When we're all just like, nobody cares. Like, you just need to do your thing and we'll be fine. Because it's usually
Yeah, like I rolled my eyes when like Ridley Scott was blaming the last duel for bombing because of millennials and their cell phone and their love for the
yeah,
Marvel movies. I'm like, you're just sounding like an old fart right now.
yeah, and I love The Last Duel. It's one of my favorite movies of last year, but that movie is a tough watch. It portrays a it portrays a sexual assault not once but twice, and the second one is more brutal than the last one. Not to mention that it is just a bleak movie, and just and I'm not asking for it to be like a high step and musical. I'm not asking for that at all. But when Ridley Scott's like, oh, it's not that good, it is like those kids these days. It's like, excuse us if we weren't exactly jonesing to spend 2.5 hours with people other than the Lady Marguerite, who we would rather be anywhere else but there. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting little debate for sure. And I just kind of drown it out and just enjoy just the movies. I think that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's why I love Roger Ebert, because he gave like 2.5 and 3-star ratings to movies you would never think he would like. Like, I remember him giving a 3-star review to Predator, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. That's a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jesse Ventura wielding a Gatling gun and wearing an I Want My MTV shirt. This should not have been like given 3 stars by Roger Ebert, but he did. Like, he just found the little something in movies that you would never expect him to like, and that's why I have so much respect for him. He gave everything a chance and took every genre with a great deal of seriousness. And so when you see something like, say, like the aforementioned Predator get 3 out of 4 stars, you're just like, whoa, he gave it that? And you're like, yes, he did. And that's why I love saying that there are 2 Michael Bay movies in the Criterion Collection, because people's heads explode when they when they say that. It's like, you know what's also in the Criterion Collection? The Rock. You know what else is in there? RoboCop.
I think Armageddon's on there too, if I'm not
It is,
mistaken.
it is, and that must drive my friend Rachel absolutely nuts because she hates that movie.
Yeah, that movie's definitely dumb, but I love it for that.
But anyway, if that's all you've watched, then I'll talk about.
I still got quite a bit actually. I'll try to keep it short.
My bad.
All right. I saw Son of the Pink Panther. There's actually more Pink Panther movies than you might think there is, because Peter Sellers had like about 5 or 6 movies.
Mm-hmm.
There was a stretch of movies that came out after Peter Sellers died that were trying to be made to continue on with that franchise. And then, of course, there were the Steve Martin reboots that came out years later, which I'll get to that later on, because I've been going for all the Pink Panther films on my channel, collabing with another YouTuber, Dave, from Interpreting the Stars. Son of the Pink Panther was the final film in the original run of the franchise. This is supposed to be the son of Clouseau. And I will briefly say I did enjoy a lot of the past Pink Panther films, especially the ones with Peter Sellers. A Shot in the Dark is my personal favorite of the Peter Sellers, Blake Edwards era Pink Panther films. That movie is hysterical. It's a great murder mystery, and the comedy is on point, and it's one of the most hilarious comedies of the classic era of Hollywood. The movies that came out after Peter Sellers' death are all pretty bad. Like, they tried copying the formula with a different actor, and it's not good. One of them even
wasn't there one made that was made like Peter Sellers died in the middle of it, and instead of canceling the project, they were just like, "Oh, we have all this test footage of him. Let's just use that." Like,
yeah, that was one of the movies, and it's rough to watch. It's just deleted footage from past movies, and they try to awkwardly cram it into the narrative. And the Peter Sellers footage is funny, but it just doesn't work as a movie. And then the second half of the movie is just a clip show trying to pay tribute to Peter Sellers. And I'm like, this movie had good intentions, but it's boring. It's not a good movie. I don't know what Blake Edwards was thinking on that one.
Yeah, not to mention, and I don't want to like sound like I'm be like I'm not one of those like problematic like kind of people, but like especially considering that Peter Sellers like passed away, it's like it just feels kind of gross for them to try and make something off of his name like when he literally like passed on. I just don't know how I feel about that.
See, I think Peter Sellers' wife actually sued Blake Edwards for that because he did it without her permission, and she actually won her case because of that.
I don't blame her for a single second.
Yeah. Then there was one movie that came out literally where they wrote it to where they like Clouseau actually never died. He faked his own death so he could have an early retirement. And the movie actually had Roger Moore play Clouseau in disguise. And that the rest of the movie was so bad. The actor they tried to do the replacement Clouseau was terrible, and I didn't care for the slapstick one bit. But then you get Roger Moore show up as the real Clouseau, and I was like, considering this came out around the time as some of the later Bond movies he did, it was kind of brilliant to have him play more of a parody version of himself with the fake French accent and stuff. And I was like, I kind of wanted to see the Roger Moore Pink Panther movie. This was actually kind of funny.
It's so bizarre. Like he never dies, and is like, did he get like plastic surgery? Like
he did get plastic surgery, and he looks like Roger Moore, and it's supposed to be Clouseau, but Roger Moore as Clouseau.
That's so weird. That is so weird, bro.
And that is the follow-up to the clip show movie. That one's called Curse of the Pink Panther. Trail was the clip show movie. The one I watched this past week was Son of the Pink Panther, which came out like 10 years later, 1993. And this has Roberto Benigni, or Benigni, whatever you pronounce his last name, as the son of Clouseau. And I actually really like this actor. Have you seen the movie Life is Beautiful?
I've only seen clips, but I know which movie you're talking about.
Yeah, he is this is the Life is Beautiful guy, and I love that movie.
Oh,
he is fantastic in that movie. I love the physical comedy that he brings in that film, and yeah, it's weird saying that because technically that's a Holocaust movie, and it's more serious in the second half, but the first half is like this Charlie Chaplin-esque rom-com movie, which is actually very sweet to watch. And you watch the movie and you're like, this guy, it's like he's from the wrong generation because he literally reminds me of Charlie Chaplin. And he is really good with his physical comedy. And so I was like, okay, he's in a Pink Panther film and he's taking on Peter Sellers, but he's supposed to be playing his son. This might be really good. I liked him, but the script did not work. Like, the movie is too self-serious for its own good. I liked that it tried to be a finality to the original franchise because Blake Edwards directed all the films up to that point. and it was like his last movie before his retirement. But like the action, the stakes, I thought were kind of boring. I didn't care for the plot of the movie, and I just didn't think the humor was as good. Like it had the potential, but it just didn't really live up to it, and I just felt sad by the end of it that this was the end of the original Pink Panther franchise. I'm like, there's so much you could have done that could have been better.
Yeah, I remember there's this channel called Hats Off Entertainment, Jacob. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it is really underrated. And the host of it, his name is Joe. He actually did a retrospective on the Pink Panther movies. And the entire time I was watching it, I was like, I had no idea there was this many Pink Panther movies. And when it got to the trail one, I was like, wow, this is just so many wrong decisions. It just feels like there were like the first two were good, and then they tried to do it like over and over again, and just it was like Blake Edwards was good, and Peter Sellers was good, and the rest was kind of just there. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Pink Panther cartoons, but the Pink Panther cartoons are really funny.
They are really funny. I have some of the DVDs in my basement. I haven't seen those cartoons in so long, but they are brilliantly funny.
Yeah, the intros to those are always the best. Is like you get Henry Mancini's score, and then you get the build up, and then you just see the Pink Panther lounging, like dusting off a cigarette in the holder. It's like iconic stuff.
Yeah, I am intrigued because next in the series, I'm checking out the Steve Martin films. I haven't seen them in so long. That was my introduction to the franchise as a kid, was watching the Steve Martin films. I actually have a soft spot for the first one. I actually do still kind of like, but I don't. I don't think two is as good as the first one, but I do kind of like Steve Martin in the role, even though he's no Peter Sellers, and I do get a crack out of that whole gag where he's like, I would like to buy a cracker.
Yeah, I just remember laughing my head off at that every time because Steve Martin, God bless him, like he's just somebody who did so much cool stuff, and just now he's just still so cool. Like, I don't know how. It's like Steve Martin is still cool, still, somehow, as the banjo player, touring with Martin Short on their like comedy tour thing. Like, it's cool, but he's doing murders on the something floor with him and Martin Short and Selena Gomez. It's like Steve Martin's still crushing it nowadays.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed Steve Martin's works. I think my favorite role of his is actually his small part as the dentist in Little Shop of Horrors. Like, wow, he's so over the top in that.
He definitely maximized his minutes there. That is for certain.
Yep. Then I watched a movie called Class of 1984. This movie came out in 1982, and this is one of those underrated 80s gems I've ever discovered. I discovered it from a subscriber. And it's a action revenge film that came out. It's about this aspiring music teacher who transfers to a school. And this high school is rough. It's overrun by like this punk gang. And they're going out and they kind of run the school with this iron fist. They poison kids with drugs and make them go suicidal. They blow up people's cars. They skin the biology teacher's animals. They assault the main teacher's wife at one point. And I'm like, this movie is rough. You gotta have the right mindset, and you have to know what you're getting into before getting into this movie. And the last 20 minutes is literally a revenge story where the teacher goes after these kids after they assault his wife. And the kills in this movie are so brutal for an 80s revenge film. I was just like, wow, this is insane to watch. Some of which I don't really want to dive too deep into because of spoilers and stuff. But like, one guy literally gets his arm cut off by a saw, and I was just like, apparently it caused controversy when it came out because people were criticizing a teacher killing kids and stuff. And I'm like, well, one, he's going after him in self-defense. He has a legit reason to go after him. And two, it's a film of fiction. So some of the controversy surrounding some of these movies have always baffled me.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a blast watching this movie. I was on the edge of my seat throughout the film. The score is really intense. It even has an early appearance from Michael J. Fox, and this is before he broke big, and I thought he was really good in the minor scenes he was in. I found it on the streaming service Tubi, and I think it's one definitely worth checking out. It's a really, really good hidden gem.
Yeah, this was directed by, I was looking it up, this was directed by Mark Lester, who directed a great Schwarzenegger movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, called Commando. I love that movie so much.
I didn't realize he directed that when I was watching it.
John Matrix, man.
Oh, that movie is so much fun. It's probably one of the more over-the-top Schwarzenegger movies, but it is insanely fun.
I almost want to say it's the most Arnold movie Arnold ever did. Because
it is.
But literally the last 20 minutes is him with like the camo paint on and all the weapons just like shooting everything that moved and nothing touches him. It's makes no sense, but by God, is it glorious. It is so much fun to watch.
It is, for sure. Definitely one of his more out there, over-the-top movies. Well, I also finally watched Scream.
Ooh, how'd you like it?
The original Scream. I also saw the new Scream as well, but I'll dive into that shortly. The original Scream is one of the best horror movies I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
I've only seen 2 Wes Craven films, this and the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And watching them realize, I can definitely see why he's considered one of the all-time great horror directors. I mean, the horror sequences were incredible. My favorite of which is the opening with Drew Barrymore. Like, it was it was like a tease of the mix between the slasher stuff and the meta commentary that defined the rest of the movie. The meta commentary was absolutely brilliant. I was laughing throughout all the times they were poking fun of the cliches, like all the rules, like no having sex and no drugs and don't say I'll be right back. It was a great movie. I loved the characters. Sidney Prescott's like one of my favorite final girls in any horror movie now. I enjoyed the performances all around. I enjoyed the twist. I thought worked. I kind of was predicting where it was going. Like, there were sometimes I'm like, oh, I think it is that person. And I'm like, no, it might not be that person. They set some things up like, no, it might be. No. Oh, it was brilliant. I didn't see the even final twist coming. Should I go into the spoilers on the original Scream or hold off?
I think by this point, if someone's watching it, I'm not sure. Let's err on the side of caution and say no.
All right. So I'm not going to go. The final twist blew me away. I'm just going to say that on the identity of Ghostface. I'm just going to say that. Like, I didn't see that part coming. And I thought it was awesome. Let's just put it there. It's a fantastic horror movie, and it's one of my absolute favorite horror movies of all time now. That and the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, shout out to Matthew Lillard. When we're recording this, today is his birthday. So happy birthday to Matthew Lillard, who has one of my favorite deliveries in Scream, where he's like, "I'm gonna go get a beer, Randy. You want one?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "I'll be right back." That's just fantastic. And then again, no spoilers, but everything is involved with him is just great stuff. And yeah, when going into this, I knew about that Wes Craven was pretty much done making horror movies. It was like this and New Nightmare kind of was like him just being like, I'm just done with all of this. I'm just going to tear it down. But the movie was so good, that being Scream. Scream was so good that it kind of brought on a second wave of the slasher movies. But I think it ended up being a little worse because we got movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer and just kind of the stuff that Cabin in the Woods kind of made fun of. So Scream was
Cabin in
excellent.
the Woods was insane.
Oh, God, yeah, I remember like one of my early Halloween series. I watched it for that, and you know what? Come to think of it, I should probably do that for this year's Scary Mania, but that'll be in for another time. But yeah, Scream 1996. It was excellent. It was really, really good.
Yeah, I love that movie. I still haven't seen 2 through 4, but I'm definitely excited to check those movies out, especially with Wes Craven behind them. But I did go see the new Scream, which just came out a week or two ago at the time of this video. Have you seen the new Scream yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't had the chance.
Okay, so I won't go into spoilers on here since you haven't seen it. I thought it was interesting. Like, I like the setup of the new Scream. It's pretty much making fun of the trend of rebootquels, which is like a mix of like the soft reboot stuff, introducing new characters in the world and bringing back the legacy characters like Sidney Prescott and Dewey and Gale from the original movie and having them team up together.
Mhm.
They were making fun of that, and I liked the setup of that, and I liked some of the meta commentary as they're exploring, the mix of the slashers and then some of the more experimental art house horror films like the Babadook is referenced in Jordan Peele's Get Out. Some of those types of movies are referenced throughout this movie as well. I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying where it's building up to, and I like some of the commentary they were building, like they're riffing on like toxic fandoms and stuff. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay, I'm liking where it's going. I'm liking where it's going. Wasn't a fan of the twist, and that's what kind of derailed the film for me. Is like the twist. It was a bit too obvious, I thought, and I was like, they had the red herrings, yes, and I was like, okay, there's some ideas in there that could work, and there's some really cool subversions you could do with the characters and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, they went with the obvious, and I was pretty disappointed in that. I gotta say, again, I'm not going into spoilers. I wasn't a fan of how they treated one of the legacy characters. I thought it, even though I've not seen 2 through 4, and I've only seen the original Scream, I felt like they did one of the characters dirty. That's all I'm gonna say without spoiling it. And I'm pretty mixed on the film. I've seen some people rate it as like the best Scream movie since the original, and I'm like, I can't really go there. It's a well-made movie. It's made by the same crew who did Ready or Not, and I love that movie. So it's a well-done movie, and I definitely felt like they were paying tribute to Wes Craven while making the film. But to me, the movie just rang hollow for me because it seemed like they were just trying to remake the first Scream with a new set of characters, and I didn't think it was as brilliant as the original Scream, to put it for lack of a better words.
yeah. What I loved the most about the original Scream was that it made me doubt myself as to who was Ghostface. I thought for sure I knew at the 20-minute mark, but by like the hour mark, I was like, I guess it's not this person. And then when the twist happens, you're like, oh, okay. So it's literally it did something that almost never happens to me. It threw me off the scent. And from what I have been reading about the new Scream, there are people that love it. There's a small minority of people who are like, "Oh, they went full Last Jedi," which groan. But but what you're saying is the movie is a mixed bag.
I think it's a mixed bag. I can't say it. I think the only argument I can say about the haters that say it went full Last Jedi is what happens to one of the legacy characters. But other than that, I think it's a well made movie. I was just kind of bored by it in some regards because it's literally beat by beat the original Scream. but it's not a horrible movie either. I was just kind of disappointed in it by the end of the day. I guess I was expecting more shocks and more surprises and more subversion. I'm just like, okay, you're making a new Scream years later. Let's try to one up what we did in the original movie and make an even bigger shock. I thought they would try to one up it. I'm like, nah, it's about more of the same. And I just don't think it works this time.
That's interesting. There really is.
Yeah, some people are saying it's the best Scream movie, and I'm like, nah, I can't go there. But I don't think it's the worst thing either. So I'm just kind of in the middle on it.
Yeah, gotcha. Somebody needs to come along and kind of make like a parody of like the A24 horror movies. There's plenty of source material to do that with. That's all I'm saying.
Man, I guess if they play their cards right, if they decide to make another Scream movie, make them spoof the A24 stuff. That would be something completely different.
Ghostface in like a Midsommar style community, that would be interesting.
All right, so I think I'll do three more and then I'll leave it over to you. So I rewatched for my Superhero Saturday series. Prepare to roll your eyes at this. I rewatched the Justice League cut of Justice League. And I have not watched this cut since the Snyder Cut came out.
Now, Jacob, I don't know a therapist, but I can get you in contact with my priest if you need to.
No, I think I'm all right. So I have an interesting history with this movie. So when the theatrical cut of Justice League came out, I knew a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff. I knew they replaced directors. I knew there were reshoots. But I was like, oh, this is going to assist Zack Snyder, not take it away from him. And so I was watching the movie and I'm like, okay, this could have been better. I can tell they cut some stuff. I enjoyed it for what it was. And so I didn't know about the whole hashtag release the Snyder Cut thing. I'm like, oh, this movie's okay. It's not horrible, but it's okay. And then people kept talking about the Snyder Cut, and then the Snyder Cut actually did happen. I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch this Snyder Cut and see if it's any better or not. And then it turned out the Snyder Cut was amazing, and that was the cut we should have got. And so the theatrical cut of Justice League is awful. Like, it's especially now that we got the Snyder Cut, I'm like, what was Warner Brothers thinking? Like, the reshoots are so obvious. They are so bad. The Joss Whedon dialogue does not work with Zack Snyder's whatever he was setting up. Like, they feel like they're at arm's length with each other, and it is so obvious whenever the reshoots are happening. The visual effects are terrible. Steppenwolf looks horrible in the theatrical cut. Like, considering how bulky and awesome he looks in the Snyder Cut, like, here he looks like puny and embarrassing, and all he does is complain about my mother box. That's all his character. There's no character.
Yeah.
It's awful. And you got Superman, like, they had to like reshoot some scenes with him, and they had to like CGI his upper lip because he grew that mustache for Mission Impossible Fallout. And it shows. And there's some scenes where it looks like Clark Kent has like a baby lip, and then you've probably seen that meme where he has almost like a Joker grin.
Yeah, I've seen the one.
Oh, it's so bad.
You know,
and then like the problem with also the film was mandated to like 2 hours, and it messed up a lot of the character development. Like, if you're just watching this cut, like, it's hard getting into characters that are supposed to be set up. Like, the Flash has no character. Aquaman has no character. Cyborg especially has no character. Cyborg was done dirty. in the theatrical cut, and I was just like rolling my eyes with like everything that was happening in this cut. Like, I don't care for these characters; they don't function well as a team. The dialogue is cringe. The editing is abysmal, especially after watching the Snyder cut. The reshoots are terrible. It is an unpleasant movie to watch, especially with some of the behind the scenes stuff and some of the rumors and some of the allegations that have come with some of the behind the scenes stuff. But it's a rough movie to watch. I didn't enjoy this cut. The Snyder cut is the version I'll watch going forward. I guess I wanted to revisit it because I was wanting to do 2 different reviews talking about both cuts of the movie, but wow, this cut is bad. I think for a while I had 2016 Suicide Squad as my least favorite DCU film, but nope, Justice League. That's the worst movie.
Wow,
it's weird. If you look at my ranking now, the Snyder Cut is my favorite DCU movie, and my least favorite's the Justice League cut. It's so bad.
You know, I was on Twitter today, and I don't know how or where I saw this, but I saw that somebody had made a fan-made like Criterion Collection cover for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I gotta say, it just made so much sense for me because, and I was a Justice League defender. I still have the Blu-ray. It's a Best Buy exclusive, so I'm never giving it up, especially because their physical media stash has gone from this to pretty much that, so I'm keeping it. But yeah, it's so painful, like, to go back and look at this. It's because it's clear that they were trying to be Marvel, and they just completely whiffed it. Like, say what you want to about Zack Snyder, the dude had about as close to a plan as Warner Brothers could ever ask for. And when it didn't glean the results that they wanted, they're like, yoink, you're out of here. Joss, you're in. Like, do your thing. And like, I joked in my review when I reviewed this for not last year, but in early 2020 for Birds of Prey. I said that this was directed by Zach Whedon or Joss Snyder. Take your pick. And
yeah, I think Joss's vision's in the Justice League more than Zach. Zach is just there by name. Like, it's really weird. Like, they still have Zack Snyder's name in the opening credits, and Joss only has story credit. And I'm like, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth because you can tell this is not Zack Snyder's movie. And even like the color correction is really bad. Like, you watch even the early trailers and you can see the film had a darker color palette. And the final battle has like this ugly orange in the final battle, and everything just looks artificial and video gamey and stuff. And I'm like, and this ended up having a $300 million budget. So the fact that this movie looks so cheap is embarrassing. And then the one final thing I have to say on this, I will never understand this change in character arc. Like, one of my favorite moments in the Snyder Cut is when the Justice League is killed and the Flash has to break his rule and reverse time to save the League. That is one of the most awesome visual sequences I have ever seen in a comic book film. So what did they have Joss do in his version? He just pushes a truck. That's his character arc. He just pushes a truck, and he's like the butt end of a joke.
Yeah, and look awkward. Like you mentioned, there is no character to the Flash or Aquaman. Aquaman's sole purpose in the Justice League is to say, my man, and woo at the top of his lungs. Yep. Like, stop saying woo, Aquaman. You are not Ric Flair. What are you like?
And like, Cyborg has no character either. He just looks bored the whole movie. And I know, like, apparently he and like Joss had like this argument because like Joss wanted to say booyah, which was like the character's catchphrase in the cartoons and stuff. And he's like, no, I don't want to say that. That wouldn't work with the Zack Snyder dark approach. He's like, well, I'm making the movie now, so you got to say it. And you get to the end where he says the booyah line, and he just looks like he wants to poop his pants while saying that line. It looks painful for him. He's just like, booyah. I'm like, oh, this cut is terrible.
You know, I was like in the early days of release the Snyder Cut, I was just like, I was cringing and rolling my eyes so hard, but I always maintained the position of, if the Snyder Cut exists and if it is released legally, I will watch it. And when it was announced that it was getting released, I was like, I made a promise. It's on the internet. So, like, if I don't watch and review this, people will be like, when I'm famous, people will be like, see what happened to this. So I said I made a promise and I kept it. And I had to eat crow. The movie was far better in every conceivable way to the Justice League in every form and fashion. And I understand why people wouldn't like Zack Snyder as a filmmaker. I defend him, even though I do see why people wouldn't like him. But like I said, he had a plan, he had a vision, and I think if Warner Bros. Had given him just a little bit of leeway, he would have seen it through. But it's unfortunate that we're just not going to get that now, and I'm afraid for what the DCU is going to be doing. I mean, Peacemaker, from what I heard, I have not seen it yet, I've heard is good, but I'm just afraid of what they're going to turn into. And just, I guess it's better than nothing, because as a DCU defender, it was so hard from like mid 2016 through like 2018, where every other headline was, this director's out, new director's in, and Flash screenplay completely thrown out and started from scratch. You're just like, guys, you are a multi-billion-dollar studio, figure it out. It was just so frustrating. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it is a frustrating experience, and the fandom hasn't really helped either, because you have that one group of people that are like diehard Snyder. I will die on a hill for Zack Snyder. Everything else sucks. And so there's even a hashtag now, boycott WB, where they're literally boycotting anything Warner Brothers is doing until they get more Zack Snyder stuff. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, why? It's just silly. It's petty. Like, respect other creators. Like, I'm not a fan of the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League, but man, there's other good DCU movies out there, like the Suicide Squad. The James Gunn one is amazing. I like the Wonder Woman movies. Yes, I even liked 84. That's a hot take in itself, but I enjoyed that movie. Birds of Prey was good. Aquaman was good. And I haven't fully caught up with the Peacemaker show, but from what I've seen, I thought it was pretty good. So there's a lot of stuff you can enjoy in the DCU along with Zack Snyder's work. And it's just very frustrating that outside of Star Wars, the most toxic fan base is easily DC.
Yeah, by a country mile, I agree.
All right, so I got two more I'd like to share. First, I rewatched The Matrix for my director project I'm doing on the Wachowskis. Yeah, that movie's awesome. I've always been a fan of The Matrix. There's probably what more needs to be said about The Matrix? It's one of the most groundbreaking visual effects movies of all time. Like, the Wachowskis revolutionized action filmmaking to the next level. The visual effects, considering the film's over 20 years old, it still looks incredible all these years later. The gun fu is what it's called, and the bullet time and all that. It is an amazing experience. I love Hugo Weaving's like my favorite character in the whole movie, Agent Smith, the Mr. Anderson. Like, he just completely hams that role up to the max. And even the Matrix sequels, which aren't as good, and I'll dive into them later, but he's the best part in the original trilogy, I would say. I love his performance. I like the philosophical discussions mixed with the action blockbuster stuff. It's a really good mix. The only thing I've never been a fan of, I don't know if you agree with me on this or not. Like, I never bought into Neo and Trinity as a couple. Like, that just seemed like a last minute thing in the third act of the movie. And when she like kisses him in the end and that like revives, I was like, no, I can't go with that. That is cringe.
I have to disagree with you slightly. I actually do quite like the relationship that they do have. But then again, that's just me.
Yeah, I guess I can see that, but to me, I just like them better as like friends to me, and them setting up a romance just kind of always felt forced, and that was kind of like the driving thing in the sequels. And I'm just like, I mean, the action's pretty good, but I don't buy their chemistry, and I don't buy the romantic aspects of the story. So that always rang hollow for me. But I will rewatch the Matrix sequels to see if my opinion changes on that. As I've only seen Reloaded and Revolutions once, but the first Matrix is always amazing. I've always enjoyed that one ever since I first saw it.
Yeah, wholeheartedly.
And then the last movie I'd like to share. This movie is weird. This is a movie called The Toy. It was directed by Richard Donner. It was released in 1982. It stars Richard Pryor, and it also stars Jackie Gleason.
Oh, wow.
This is the premise of the movie. And
Okay.
this movie would not fly by today. I'm just going to say that. So Richard Pryor, he's struggling to find work, and he's desperate to do anything to find a job. And so he's working around in a department store, and he's playing around in the toy section. And then this little boy walks in, and the little boy is the son of the owner of the store. The dad's played by Jackie Gleason. And so the kid's watching Richard Pryor play around in the toy store, and the dad, before going in, tells him, you can get anything you want in the toy store, because they're just spoiled rich family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes up and he sees Richard Pryor going all crazy and stuff. And so the kid's like, I'll buy him.
Oh,
and that's
no.
the plot of the movie.
Oh, no. Oh, my. Oh, okay.
I was like, this would not be a movie made today, because people would like criticize it and say the film is like racist and stuff, because the kid's literally buying a black guy. And I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into watching
the
this
early
movie?
80s.
But to the movie's defense, like the core of the story is the kid trying to get attention from his dad, because the dad is busy with his work, and he's also like a newspaper guy, and he's into politics and stuff. And so he has no time for his son. And so literally the kid will do anything to reconcile with his dad. And I think once I realized where the story was going, I'm like, okay, this movie's weird, but it has a point, and I respect where the movie's going. And also, to the movie's credit, it's funny to watch. Like, you got two legendary comedians, Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason, pretty much going all out at each other for 90 minutes. And apparently they improv'd a lot of their dialogue, and it's actually great fun to watch. So yeah, the movie's silly, the movie's weird, and to anyone easily offended, don't watch this, because you will get triggered and you'll try to cancel the movie, and the movie is so weird. But I don't know, there's a charm to this movie that I actually did enjoy, and it's definitely not one of Richard Donner's best movies. I saw the movie has like a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes. People literally rated it as like a garbage movie, the critics back in the day. But I'm like, really? This is as bad as Jack and Jill? Like, I would watch Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason over anything Adam Sandler. But that's just me.
Yeah, if any two people can make a premise like that work, it is Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason by a country mile. Like, those two the funniest people who ever lived, in my opinion.
yeah, they are really good in this movie. I would say probably Richard Pryor. I think one ups Jackie Gleason in the movie because he's the star. But man, Jackie Gleason, considering before this movie I had only seen him in Smokey and the Bandit, was so good in this movie. He was ridiculously funny in this role.
The early 80s, bro. The early 80s.
I just love watching some of these 80s movies and seeing what you could get away with back then versus what you can't get away with now. And I'm like, yep,
You
I
know,
love these 80s movies.
I remember I was going through watching all the movies I could find in 1980, and one of them was a remake of The Jazz Singer, which I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, but it was the first sound movie ever made. But it's also got another distinction. It's got Al Jolson famously in very obvious blackface, and it is quite painful to see even in still images. But the movie was remade in 1980 by Neil Diamond, and you guessed it, Neil Diamond.
He's still doing the blackface even in 1980.
And it is just as bad as you imagine. And guess who Neil Diamond's dad is in the movie? Martin Landau.
Oh, I don't know if I can picture them as father and son, but okay. I have seen the original Jazz Singer. I was intrigued to watch the film because it was heavily referenced in Singing in the Rain, is because the Jazz Singer was like the first talkie picture, and I watched it. I was kind of disappointed in it. Yeah, the blackface elements aside, which, yeah, that's kind of cringy and awkward in today's standards, but most of the movie's a silent movie. There's just snippets of talking and musical sequences in the movie, and I was like, the movie's kind of false advertising because I thought it was a fully talking film, and most of it's a silent film. And I was like, I don't get the hype for this movie, but I guess it revolutionized sound, so you got to give it some credit.
Yeah, and I was going into this movie completely blind, and I was like, Jazz Singer, I wonder if it has anything, and then I realized it was like, uh-oh, and then the scene happens, and you're like, oh, Neil, oh, my friend. Thank God he's a good singer, and he does some very, very good singing, and he does the "We're Coming to America."
Oh, I know that song. That's a great song. I love that.
That song, and it is just as good as you might think. But
and that's where it came from, that movie?
I believe so. I would have to look it up, but I believe that's correct. But yeah, when I saw it, I was just like, oh my good Lord, Neil, what were you thinking?
Well, I'm surprised like the cancel culture people on Twitter haven't dived back and seen that. I'm like, oh, Neil Diamond is a monster. Cancel him. And I was like, but that happened like, what, 40 years ago now. I'm sure Neil Diamond is a more mature man by now.
Yeah, it is like, cancel Sweet Caroline now. It is like guys, come on. Like, really?
All right, so what have you watched this past week?
Well, clearly not as much as you, but I did watch a couple of things. Number one, I ended up watching Fargo for the first time, and
Nice.
I really loved it. I don't think I love it as much as The Big Lebowski, but I think that's because The Big Lebowski is like such a gem of a movie. You cannot replicate that movie in like style, tone, actors. You just can't. But Fargo was I just got such a kick out of it. I don't know if Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare are the best criminals ever or the worst or the best worst, but they're definitely in that conversation. And William H. Macy, God bless him, like his character is just like, oh, I'm just going to kidnap my own wife and nothing could possibly go wrong other than everything going wrong. And so it's like watching a slow motion car crash. You're just like, dude, it's not too late to abandon ship, and he never does. And it's a big old dose of Schadenfreude, and it's great. But honestly, the best part of the movie is Frances McDormand. I thought she was excellent. She's very pregnant in the movie, but she doesn't sell it, not one bit. She still handles this case like a pro. Like, there is a scene where she straight up gets like clues and she's handling it as like this old time country style buffet. And like she's eating with her husband, played by John Carroll Lynch, and she's got like this big old tray of food, and you're like, wow, like that's certainly not where I do my casework, but hey, 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 ho, ho. But just wow, this movie, it just yet another one where it's like you talk about all the planets, the moon, and the sun, and all the stars coming into perfect alignment for just the best dialogue. Roger Deakins' great cinematography. The score is really good too. Just wow, I didn't think I would love this movie as much as I do, but it's really, really, really good.
Yeah, it's been several years since I've seen Fargo. I've only seen it once, and it is a great movie. I don't think it's my personal favorite Coen Brothers movie or anything, but there is a lot of great parts to this movie. The performances are all great. I love Frances McDormand, especially in this movie. I love like just how it balances the line between being a thriller and also a dark comedy. It's a really good little blend that I highly respect the Coen brothers for experimenting with. I will say this, I guess this might be a hot take. I've never been the biggest fan of The Big Lebowski. I watched it once and I liked it, but I didn't love it. Like, if you get what I'm trying to say, like, there's good entertainment value, but I guess, didn't get The Big Lebowski, I guess, compared to other people. I guess it's only because I've seen it once, but I thought it was a good movie. But I think I've seen other Coen Brothers movies that I personally preferred more. Like, if you ask me, my favorite Coen Brothers movie is Old Brother Where Art Thou. I can
Oh, that movie
rewatch
is
that movie
so good. It's
and
so
be
good.
entertained and satisfied by that movie. The soundtrack, the entertainment value, the performances, the cinematography, that is just one of my essential movies right there.
I didn't think I'd need a telling of the Odyssey in the antebellum South, but by God, the Coen brothers did just that, and they are amazing for it. But as far as The Big Lebowski goes, we're going to watch that together, and I'm going to make you a dudite. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But
We'll see.
But then I ended up watching The Bourne Ultimatum, which I actually covered in a Bourne video on my channel, I believe early last year. And this movie has a lot of meaning for me just because my parents took me to see it and I wasn't sure if I was ready for some of the scenes in it. But it's my favorite Bourne movie, and it's honestly one of my favorite action movies. The movie has just a great pace. And I ended up watching that before Identity and Supremacy, but I wasn't
Wow.
lost. Like, the movie does a good job of like explaining who Marie Kreutz is, what Jason Bourne is after, who's after him, why they're after him. The movie is surprisingly efficient at doing that. And for being a third movie, I can't remember a third movie, and I'm not going to compare it to like Return of the King, because Return of the King's like rarefied air, but I can't remember a third movie that did such a good job of doing efficiently like, this is this person, this is why they're here, this is this person, this is why they're here. It's such a good movie. I will defend The Bourne Ultimatum from now until the end of time. Honestly, the Bourne trilogy is just excellent. Bourne Legacy and Jason Bourne do not exist. They simply don't.
I actually don't mind Jason Bourne. I thought that was a solid enough return to the franchise, even though it pales compared to the original three. I guess because you got Matt Damon back and Paul Greengrass directing, I didn't mind it. But Bourne Legacy was awful. Like, I've only seen that one time, and I'm like, this movie did not need to exist. You couldn't even bring Matt Damon back as Bourne and still call it a Bourne movie. Like, what were you thinking? But I do agree. The original three Bourne movies are fantastic. Each movie, I feel like, just builds and builds and builds upon each other. And the mystery and the suspense of Jason Bourne as a character and learning and piecing back his memory is a really exciting thrill ride. And I agree, Ultimatum, I think, is the best of the three. I think it has the best action. I think it has the best character moments. I think it has the best payoff. Like when we finally learn who Bourne really is and how he got his start at that organization. I think it's a great seed of Jason Bourne's character, and I think it pays off incredibly well. It's an amazing movie. And I gotta say, Paul Greengrass, I know people hate the shaky cam, handheld cam style of action, but Paul Greengrass might be like the only director where I don't mind this style of filmmaking. Like he can make quick cuts and handheld shots and make an art form out of it, because even with these cuts, they are still effective with the tone of the story, and you still get a good glimpse of the action even with this style. Like other movies, it's just, ooh, shake it up. Oh, yeah, we're going to make it to where you can't see, and we got to dumb down everything. And no, Paul Greengrass doesn't do that.
Yeah, I was watching Ultimatum, and the Waterloo train station sequence, the Tangier sequence, and the New York City sequence are all three very different sequences, and they're all brilliant in a variety of different ways. You know where everyone is. It's quick, but it's not like incomprehensible. You know, Jason Bourne's here, Simon Ross is here, the asset is coming into the signage here. You know where Vosen and all CIA are. Everything is told to where, you know where everything is on the game board. So when something big happens, you're like, oh, and then you put two and two together, and it's brilliant. Like you said, Paul Greengrass is just excellent at it is shaky cam, yes, but he knows how to utilize it better than anyone else. And the movie has one of my favorite Jason Bourne lines, where after he learns that he volunteered for the program, he was David Webb, and then he put that aside, and then he tells Albert Hirsch, I'm not going to kill you. You don't deserve the star they give you at Langley. And then he runs away because he's getting shot at. And a young Edgar Ramirez, who's the asset, he chases him down, and he's got him pinned, and he asks him, why didn't you take a shot? Because he chased him in the car earlier, and they had a big old crash, which that was practical, and that was awesome, by the way. But he's like, why didn't you take the shot? And Bourne's like, do you even know why you're supposed to kill me? And then he gives the line, look at us. Look at what they make you give, which is a callback to the Bourne identity when a dying Clive Owen said the same thing to Bourne. So everything comes full circle. That's why I don't like what they did with Jason Bourne. I felt like it was just undoing all that. And they killed Nicky Parsons, which I will never forgive them for, but that's another rant for another time. Anyway, Bourne Ultimatum. It's on Amazon Prime, and I highly recommend everyone watch
it. Yeah, the original three are fantastic stuff.
Yeah, and I will definitely hear people say that Supremacy is the best, and I can definitely see why. The India chase, the fight in the house with Bourne and the other dude, the last Treadstone agent. I can't remember this actor's name, but he's really good. And the Berlin stuff and the Moscow chase with a young Carl Urban, he's almost a baby face here in that. That was really good too. It was just, the Bourne movies are just super underrated, and they've gone really under the radar. They were everywhere, and now they're nowhere, and it's just a shame. It really is.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch these Bourne movies again sometime. It's been several years since I've last seen them, but they are great.
Yeah, and then that's pretty much all that I have seen this week, and then I'm just preparing for stuff coming up on the channel. For example, on my next Sunday video is going to be that Fargo reaction, and then the next Sunday I'm going to be talking about Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is a movie that I love to pieces.
Yes,
and fantastic movie. And then the Sunday afterwards is going to be my first reaction to a little movie called The Social Network, which I have never
seen. You've not seen that?
No, I've only seen the Andrew Garfield scene where he freaks out on Jesse Eisenberg, but that's about it. So
first, that's the best scene of the whole movie. Andrew Garfield, I would say, steals the movie from Jesse Eisenberg. He is fantastic in that role where he breaks down because he literally got screwed over by his former best friend. That's pretty much all I'll say there. But it's a really effective movie. Like, it does a good job, even if maybe you don't care about Facebook. You can still get into the movie because it's fueled by great performances and the dialogue from Aaron Sorkin, which is always very smart and snappy and very intelligent, and it always keeps you going. I think this is a great movie. I would actually compare the way this movie's made and the way the movie's edited and the way the story is told. It's almost like the modern day Citizen Kane, if you think about it, because both movies involve interesting people who create something and they pretty much go too ambitious for their own good to where even though they're successful, they still lose all the important things at the end of it. So it's a really good comparison if you look at both movies. I can't say The Social Network because I've seen people rank it as like, oh, this is the best movie of the 21st century so far. I'm like, oh, this is sounding like Citizen Kane is the greatest movie of all time. No, I'm not going there for either movie. But it is a great movie for what it is. I think there's other David Fincher films personally that I enjoy more than The Social Network. Like Seven is like my favorite David Fincher movie. And
what's in
Gone
the
Girl.
box? What's in the
Yes.
box?
Seven is great. I love Gone Girl's like my number 2, and then Zodiac are like my top 3. And The Social Network, when I went through David Fincher's filmography, it's like it's like number 6 on my ranking, which is still really good considering he has a great track record. But yeah, I don't get into this movie as much as some of his others, but it's still a great movie for what he and Aaron Sorkin set out to do. And honestly, I'm surprised they never made a sequel to The Social Network because Facebook has done even more crazy things
Yeah.
since what was established even in 2010 when the film was released. Like there's even that whole weird thing with the meta stuff you could explore in the second movie if you want. But yeah, there's so much you can do, and I'm surprised they haven't went for it yet. Like get the same crew, get the same actors, and I think it'd be a worthy sequel.
I need to see a Jack Dorsey movie, Stat. The CEO of Twitter.
Oh, that guy. I was like,
The former.
I use Twitter regularly, but I don't know the backstory.
Anyway, next of just running down things I'm going to be watching, I'm going to be rewatching M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable for a video, which I love. I think it's Shyamalan's best movie other than The Sixth Sense. Then I'm going to be finally watching Requiem for a Dream from Darren Aronofsky, and I've heard many different things about that, so I'm very excited to see what happens there.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I've heard it is really messed up in a lot of areas.
Then I'm going to be rewatching Predator 2, which I think is pretty good. Like Predator is excellent, but people are like Predator 2 is I watched it on a whim, and Predator 2 is subtly really good. So I'm going to make a video about that. And then I'm going to be finally watching for the first time a little movie called Total Recall. I've never seen it, and so I fully plan on watching it because I've heard nothing but amazing things. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie either, so might have to get together on that one. Have you been keeping up again on the Book of Boba Fett?
Yes, I have. I have a feeling that it's going to be building towards something big because people are tuning out. I know there's one reviewer I follow named Ren Geekness. He's turned off of the series entirely, and I'm just like, it's still good. I'm thinking Mandalorian's gonna show up, so I'm sticking around this till the end. And if it turns out to be a wet fart, then I'll say exactly what it is. But it's just
Yeah, I will say I'm not a fan of episode 3. I wasn't a fan of like the biker gang that showed up in that, like the youth biker gang. I thought was a cheesy addition to a more grounded series. But I felt like episode 4 brought things back on track again. I thought of the episodes so far, it had the best balance between the flashback stuff and the current timeline stuff. And I'm still enjoying the mystery of what's going on, like what's really going on in this criminal underworld and who's like backstabbing who and stuff like that. And like you said, there is a strong indicator we might see the Mandalorian. Like they played snippets of the Mandalorian theme, and I'm like, oh, is Boba and Mando teaming up? You know, I'm going to be hyped for that. I think as we saw them team up in the Mandalorian season 2, I think seeing them team again is going to be pretty awesome and a good way of bridging the shows together.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's briefly touch on the main event for the evening. Let's talk about The Batman from Matt Reeves. And it was recently announced that the movie is just over 3 hours long. And of course, the opinions started flying. People would be like, oh, movies are too long nowadays, and Batman doesn't need to be that long. And I know Rachel, my friend who I co-host Hidden Gems podcast with, was saying that the best Batman movie is still under 70 minutes regarding Mask of the Phantasm, which I mean that movie's awesome as well, and I'll be covering that. But I don't know. I've been waiting to talk about this because I don't really care how long the Batman is. All I know is that from what I have seen, the movie looks excellent. It's directed by Matt Reeves, who has just done nothing but strength to strength, like Cloverfield, to the Let Me In movie, which I have not seen, but I've heard is good, to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, then War for the Planet of the Apes, and now to this. Matt Reeves has not missed, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one, Jacob. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's where I stand.
Well, it's funny people say they're complaining movies are too long. The golden age of Hollywood, there were a lot of Hollywood epics that were longer than the Batman. Like Gone with the Wind is like near 4 hours long. I think Lawrence of Arabia was that long, and Ben-Hur. There were people accustomed to these 4 hour long epics. Now I think movies, I feel like got shorter over time because the demand for those epics were starting to dwindle. But we're seeing longer movies again. I mean, we've had the 3 hour Lord of the Rings movies, and the extended cuts are even longer than that. Like, if I'm not mistaken, the extended cut of Return of the King's like 4.5 hours or something like that. No one complains about the runtime of those movies. I mean, even Avengers End Game, 3 hour movie. No one complained about the runtime. People saw it. They were blown away by it. They're still blown away by it. They thought the runtime was warranted because it was a big cinematic event. And we even got last year, we got Zack Snyder's Justice League. 4 hours. I mean, I think some complain about the runtime, and so some that don't like the movie or Zack Snyder in general complain about that. But most people were like, yeah, I like watching this movie. They even has the chapter breaks where you can like take intermissions and stuff and go back to the movie and enjoy it and take my time watching it because it's a streaming movie. So I think at the end of the day, I don't think the runtime matters as long as it's a good movie. And if it's paced very well and the movie takes advantage of its runtime. So I am fully supporting this movie. It's one of my most anticipated of the year. Every trailer I've seen looks absolutely stunning. I love the visuals that Matt Reeves has brought. He's been a very consistent director. I haven't seen that Let Me In movie, but I've seen his other films, which are all great, especially his 2 Planet of the Apes movies. And I'm excited what he's going to bring with the Batman. It looks like he's going to do a fresh, unique spin on the character, focus more on the detective side, which we haven't seen in previous films. So I think with that extended runtime and I think Matt Reeves, it sounds like, has the full creative control. I think it's going to be a unique Batman experience. I mean, I've even seen people on Twitter already jumping to the gun that this will be the best Batman movie. I can't go there yet because I haven't seen it, and it'll be hard topping Nolan's trilogy for me personally, but I'm super excited. I really am. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. And one of my favorite movies of all time is Lawrence of Arabia. That movie is 3 hours and 48 minutes long. I remember when my dad and I saw it for a TCM Fathom event, they kept the intermissions in, and it was a literal intermission. There was a 10 or 15-minute intermission where you could stretch your legs, go to the bathroom. So, like, these long movies were the norm back in the day. Like, when you went to movies, you got dressed up in like a shirt and tie. Like, I remember telling my dad telling me this. When you went, it was like you were going to see an event. You got in a suit. Like, it was a big deal. And now things have changed, obviously. But people will be like, "Oh, it's too long." It's like, yeah, movies got long, then they got short, and now it feels like they're getting longer again. I personally don't really blink an eye at the runtime. It's what they do in the runtime that truly matters. Avengers End Game is not great because it is 3 hours long. It's great because Avengers End Game pays off literally everything that has been building up to it for the past 10 years, 11 years, like just about that. And so and I have full confidence in Matt Reeves. Like, he has proven that he knows exactly what he's doing behind the camera. You got Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell, Paul Dano as Riddler. I can't wait to see him. Like, he's gonna be great. You got a freaking who's Commissioner Gordon? I'm blanking on his name
Jeffrey
now.
Wright.
Thank you, Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. You got Andy frigging Serkis, who still freaks me out when I see him in real life and not under some kind of mocap, and just be like, oh, Andy Serkis is a real person. Who would have thunk? As Alfred, he's going to be great. It's still my most anticipated movie of the year, probably for the remainder of this year. So 3 hours, 2 hours, it really doesn't matter to me. I think it's going to be great. And I'm going to be there Thursday night with just bells on. It's going to be wonderful.
Yep, looking forward to it. It's probably my most anticipated movie of the year as well. It's a toss-up between that and Multiverse of Madness for me.
Yeah, Multiverse of Madness, just from the rumors of it having a high body count and a lot of cameos, that opens the door for a lot of possibilities. And of course, it's rumor and innuendo. Take it with a grain of salt. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it there.
Yep.
Well, that's it. That's episode 5, and wow, we just talked our heads off, Jacob, didn't we? But that's what I love. We just go back and forth, and we just let it go. That's what I love about this so much. So thank you so much, and thank you all for watching. Jacob, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me on my YouTube channel, of course. I got 2 channels. My main channel, which is pretty much my main name, Jacob Martin. I have a second channel as well, Storytime with Jacob, which is more on a reading type channel where I do read-alongs and book reviews. You can also follow me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook. I got a lot of exciting stuff coming your way on my main channel. I got some pretty interesting reviews coming up. The Alfred Hitchcock movie Blackmail being one of them. Currently, some Harry Potter reviews. Like the one that just dropped at the time of recording this video was for Deathly Hallows Part 1. Part 2 should be coming in the next week or so. I'm doing reviews of the Justice League for Superhero Saturdays. I got another 2022 physical media collection video coming up for E&F. Son of the Pink Panther, Scream. There's several exciting stuff coming your way. Definitely be on the lookout for those videos coming, and whether it's dropped already at the time of this video or other videos coming in the next week. I'm definitely keeping that grind going throughout 2022, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen this year.
Yeah, do go and subscribe to Jacob. Congratulations on over 500 subscribers now at the time of this recording. And subscribe to his second channel too. It's fantastic. And if you like what you've seen on this video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, when this podcast drops or any of my other video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. And if you like me and you want to follow me on social media, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd will be in the description below, so go check that out. For Jacob Barton, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.